BioShock, Fortnite, the Batman Arkham series, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and so many other incredible games have already been made by harnessing the power of the Unreal Engine graphics engine. Giant studios and also indie developers use it for the creation of games and other formats of eye-catching content. I myself, here on this channel, show my incredible games made in my spare time, of course, and share crazy stories thanks to this tool that is free. But until we saw incredible graphics and really cool games, it took a long time. Current technology has an absurd polygon count on the screen, many realistic elements being processed at the same time, and lighting effects that ensure that any competent artistic team can bring incredible environments to life. Amazing that, to tell you the truth, in the beginning it was more like this. I'm Neri Neto, and in this video I'm going to present the evolution of the graphics engine for nostalgia and also curiosity. There's a lot of information in this video. Let's go! To start, we're going back to 1996 for the release, the unveiling of the Unreal Engine 1 demo, when the owner of Fortnite, Epic Games, was still called Mega Games. And honestly, it got much better without that Mega, right? Mega Epic Games doesn't sound so cool. And since this is an older recording that I'm going to show here, it's the oldest of all that I'm going to show, of course, we're left with, right? Left with, it's quite jarring. It looks very bad and is very different from what we experience today. But in fact, the quality wasn't that bad either, as it's appearing in the trailer. It's more because this was the image I managed to get on the internet. So it was a little better than that, but anyway. The video announces the arrival of the graphics engine for 1997 and shows action in 3D, and a construction with a style similar to that of Doom and other old games. And still, of course, very similar to what we would see later in the game Unreal Tournament. The Unreal Engine was developed by Tim Sweeney. He started programming it back in 1995.
I'm Tim Sweeney, and I'm the founder of Epic Games. I've been programming all of my life. I started when I was 9 years old. I probably spend 13 to 14 hours a day on average programming or thinking about programming.
The first games made for Unreal were FPS, first-person shooters. So we have Star Trek Klingon Honor Guard. Yeah, it's Star Trek in first person and with the basic elements of modern first-person shooters. A simple example is light bounce, which is when light spreads in a more natural way. This effect was much harder to calculate back then, and it was quite a surprise when it arrived. Because dynamic lights weren't a thing, it was something that cost a lot back then. Dynamic lights still cost today, so being able to calculate them intelligently in a precise way was very difficult. You can even see that the shots there in Star Trek, they follow, right, with dynamic light, so it can already make the bullet trail there. It looks much more realistic, sort of. And despite the blocky look, the game features various types of weapons, with death animations well thought out for the time, and even reflections within the engine itself. It's not ray tracing, but wow. Another game that came out in the early days of Unreal Engine was TNN Outdoor Pro Hunter, a 1998 game, an ultra-realistic simulation for anyone who wanted to hunt but without leaving home. Might as well shoot with my eyes closed. Ultra-realistic. The game puts you to hunt and has a menu with a curious aesthetic, with ammunition as a selection button. Of course the game is blocky, but it's the beginning of using the engine for 3D games with realistic features. And just to get our bearings, at that same time, Valve was making Half-Life Sing on the Gold SRC graphics engine, which was a modified version of the Quake engine and was drawing a lot of attention. Another game made with the first version of the Epic Mega Games graphics engine was Unreal. Yeah, the game carried the engine's name, was published by GT Interactive, and developed by Epic Mega Games. And that was it. It arrived right at the graphics engine's debut. Unreal 1 used Glide API instead of OpenGL. It contained scripting language, which at the time already helped in the engine's popularization. And the game Unreal went on to sell 1.5 million units. That was quite an amount for the time. But like, despite that, and I'm bringing this up just out of curiosity really, because I got curious and went to check, Half-Life sold in 1998 approximately 9.3 million copies according to Valve. Yeah, Valve made a lot of money back then, but anyway. Regarding the first Unreal, it could detect collision, which allowed people to program things based on impact. It also had rendering, artificial intelligence, which also, was all very basic at the time. But the collision thing was interesting. You could program shots, you could do anything we can do today with collision. If something hit, I can say that if it hit, something happens. The first Deus Ex is an example of another game released for Unreal 1, and also in first person. And just to open a parenthesis here, these games are from 24 years ago. And man, how they've evolved! I wonder what's gonna change in games from here on out. I even have some ideas about what will change and I'll comment later, but I wanna know what you think. Leave it down here in the comments and I'll be reading them. On Unreal 1, we'd see games being released until 2003, so we go through Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, XCOM Enforcer, Tactical Ops Assault on Terror, which was like Counter-Strike, but way more frantic. And also Disney's Brother Bear game, which was very cute by the way. And it was one of the last releases with Unreal Engine 1 in 2003. Just as we see happening now from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5, Unreal 2 was in development while people were using the first one to release games. So in 2002, we'd see the first steps of Unreal 2. But back in 2000, the company released a tech demo highlighting some features that were being worked on. A skeletal structure system there that could use motion capture, so they showed animation with motion capture, improvements involving polygon count and support for higher quality textures, as well as demonstrating facial animations. And beside that, it was the first time we saw the graphics engine talk about giant maps. And if today Unreal surprises with its support in this regard, it's because it didn't start yesterday, it started doing this a long time ago. And again, this video doesn't exactly represent the image quality of the official demo, because it was taken from the internet, but it was the best I could find. And the debut was with America's Army, released on July 4th, 2002. An extremely patriotic day for Americans, it's Independence Day in the United States. And the game's pitch, the sales speech, was that this was a game that used computer technology to give the public the virtual experience of being a soldier in an immersive way. We also saw Splinter Cell, Deus Ex Invisible War, which implemented a ragdoll system, which was one of the differences of Unreal 2 compared to the first. In fact, the code for Unreal 2 was rewritten from scratch to bring significant improvements and fix limitations of the previous one. We'd also see Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which I thought was simply amazing. And from here on, we'll start to see games that can still grab attention today. And maybe it's worth checking out the gameplay, Postal 2 in 2003, Rainbow Six 3 Raven Shield in 2003 as well, Spider-Man 2 in 2004, Brothers in Arms Earned in Blood 2005, Star Wars Republic Commando, what a well-made game my friend, SWAT 4 in 2005, and even a title that would be marked in history, whether you like it or not, BioShock in 2007, the first one, which without a doubt showed what was possible to do with this graphics engine. It was possible to do truly incredible things. And regarding other technical aspects, the graphics engine even used DirectX 9.0b. It started out there with DirectX 8, then it went to 8.1b, and it reached 9.0b. Another interesting aspect to see is the documentation page, which is already starting to get big. Today, Unreal's documentation is giant. I found it curious that in 2, you can see all the topics together on the same page. And also the minimum requirements page, it's quite curious because of the informal tone it has, right? Compared to today's. And it was written by Tim Sweeney himself. I found that very curious. It even shows him talking there, right? I recommend at least 1 GB of RAM. If you're buying a new computer, now. And he even says 1 gig of DDR. Yes, it's DDR1 that he's talking about at that time, which only costs about $250. So the price shouldn't be a problem. If we take this $250 and bring it here, if we imagine adjusting for inflation, it would be about 1,500 reais for us to buy, at least. It would probably be very expensive for 1 GB of RAM. Another curious point is that they were seeing the first processors emerge, multi-threaded, And he explains that Unreal, at the time, couldn't use it for anything. It couldn't compile using multiple cores. But it was interesting to have those multiple cores so that you could keep browsing the internet, doing other things, while all the code you wrote was being compiled, because it took a long time. So you'd leave it there, compiling to get the preview, anyway, to see how it turned out. And then you'd go off and do whatever else in life. So it was good for you to have a dual core for that. He says that, at the time, the computer used by all the company's programmers had the dual Athlon 1800 Plus processor, which operated with a clock of 1533 MHz, and it had a socket, 462. This is a very bad processor nowadays. This documentation page is a goldmine of curiosities. It's worth taking a look if you're a developer or just curious. Regarding support for Unreal 2, it was updated and reached 2.5. Unreal 2.5, and games were released with it until 2013. Killing Floor in 2009, along the way, BioShock 2 in 2010, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Blacklist in 2013 for PlayStation 3, PC, and Xbox 360. And like Splinter Cell, it looks great, okay? It's even dubbed in Brazilian Portuguese, so it's worth checking out. Unreal 3 started publishing games from 2005 onwards. The first game was Gears of War in 2006, and it had the implementation of physics from NVIDIA, which is an open source physics engine from NVIDIA. And yes, I understand it might seem strange, this gap where games are released on two different engines, even though one is newer and more modern than the other, right? So why not release it on the most modern one? But it's important for us to understand, first, games are giant investments. Companies want to use tools that are already established in the market. Second, a graphics engine with so many changes takes time to establish itself in the market, gain trust, and have trained people. And you also have to understand that games take many years to be developed. 4 years is a time frame that's not uncommon for major titles in the AAA industry. So if the game started in 2005 and is published in 2009, and in between they launched a new engine, there's not much to do. But back to Unreal 3, the first demo is from 2004 and showed interaction with the environment, dynamic lights, object simulation with things like skeletons, right? Things that have a rigging structure there. So Ragdoll was also possible, all with precise physics calculations. Also the shiny material effect, right? The glow. That's when Unreal's material creation system became more robust, with the possibility of you creating dApps. In this cube, for example, you have depth as if there were a grate, but it's just the material itself. It wasn't necessary to model that, you know? Those little indentations. They also showed how it was possible to make something translucent, right, with glass, and still pass color through. And still have light bounce. So, like a series of calculations that start to give a certain realism to the games. And it was also where we saw an increase in the polygon count. Actually, every graphics engine evolution brings a higher polygon count. But that was quite remarkable. It was when we could really see a step further towards realism in a significant way, more than from Unreal 1 to Unreal 2. To name a few successful games that use this graphics engine, we can mention a giant list. Some of them, Mass Effect in 2007, Medal of Honor Airborne in 2007, Army of Two in 2008, 50 Cent Blood on the Sand in 2009, Borderlands Dishonored. Aliens Colonial Marines, BioShock Infinite. In 2011, the graphics engine had a new demonstration, and not surprisingly with a very Batman Arkham feel. Arkham Asylum had already come out, and 2011 was the year to receive Batman Arkham City. And honestly, what incredible graphics we were already seeing back then. Three, two, one. Freeze, don't move. Just out of curiosity, the requirements page maintains the same field that Tim Sweeney wrote it. except now it seems like he's next to someone who's writing and he's dictating what to write. It seems to have exactly that feeling. That would be lost in Unreal 4, when the documentation would be extensive and written in another way, more pragmatic, and besides that, Unreal 4 would revolutionize the market and completely change the history of Epic Games. Starting with Unreal 4, we saw a huge change in the way the game engine was marketed. And to tell you the truth, it became free. This really boosted the tool and made it reach people who would never have known it if it hadn't been released for free in an easy and accessible way. Online content on the official channel with free items being released every month. And the premise was that if you love it, make it free. It's a bit of a free love vibe, which isn't quite like that either. Because first, the giant studios continue to pay for support and sign contracts with Epic Games, mainly because one of the fine lines in the terms of use contract is that if you make a game that makes more than $1 million in profit, you have to pay. Royalties. And since AAA games need a game engine, right, they also need support, and they'll definitely sell a lot more than a normal game made by me. So they go ahead and sign a contract with everything, including technical support, source code, and all that stuff. But the fact is that the popularization of the game engine through these people was so great that we saw the company grow a lot. First, imagine you have a lot of money and a game studio to make a AAA game. And then you see this demo here, everything that's possible to do with this game engine. You might even wonder if it's worth adopting this game engine, instead of you and your team continuing to use what you're using. But then you think, man, how am I gonna find people to work with this? Then Epic, which has already thought of everything, shows that there's support for code normally in C++, and not alongside this, your art or programming support team can work with blueprints, which brings the essentials of code so that everything can flow normally. And then the money starts rolling in. It would be a stretch if I said that Epic Games profited $5.6 million, $4.2 million, and $5.1 million from 2018 to 2020. And it would be a lie because it didn't profit those numbers in millions. It profited in billions. And yes, all of this was possible because of the game engine that gave rise to various strategies. One of them was opening up to other audiences, so people who work with animation and film, architecture, design, they saw the tool as a simple and complete space where they could create their own projects. Most 3D software has extremely unintuitive interactions, unnecessarily complex. Unreal, on the other hand, considering everything it can do, it's extremely simple and can do a lot. It remains a space where you import scenes to create these scenes in a complete way, right? If you're going to create from scratch in there, you'll get confused and it might be unnecessary work. But it's been more than proven that it's the graphics engine with the most future. Besides being free, with community support and supporting different areas, another key point was Fortnite's success and the launch of the Epic Games Store. And for those who believe Fortnite is dying, the numbers show the complete opposite. It has over 300 million users, and at this point, it's hard to even imagine Fortnite dying. That might happen, but I don't believe it will happen. Besides being part of so many people's imaginations, Epic is definitely not playing around with this game. All this metaverse talk from Zuckerberg, the founder and main name behind Facebook, just proves that Epic is light years ahead, even of companies like Facebook itself. At least when we're talking about this type of technology. People interacting with avatars in a shared virtual space at the same time, and these people are talking, man, it's basically what we see. In Fortnite, what Epic Games is doing with the concerts inside this game. Epic, besides having the structure, has active people every day using those structures. Who else has a robust 3D graphics engine, with decades of building and expertise in these types of connections? Zuckerberg himself said that, in the beginning, the metaverse will look like a video game. And even if Epic isn't the company providing complex metaverse services, it will participate because companies will go to them asking for ways to do it efficiently, related to the graphics engine, to the 3D space. So Unreal 4 is very robust. Over the years, it introduced several interesting technologies for developers, including lighting, terrain, polygon counts, animations, quite a few, so like even ray tracing itself. And it was the one that launched the most games for the company. and it will continue to launch them for a long time. Unreal 4 brought a new documentation library, all organized with images, several tutorials, various little things. And a curious point, also involving Tim Sweeney, is that the graphics engine has been in development since 2003. And until the middle of 2008, it was developed only by Tim Sweeney. Man, think about how much this guy gave his soul for this graphics engine. It was only in 2012 that some people could see what was being done, right? A little better there, right? People who are outside the Epic Games circle know Epic might do games now. And about the games released, I don't even need to say because they were showing there and there were also many games. Unreal 5, it arrived with bold ideas, let's say. It arrived with early access for everyone in 2021. And it's the greatest maturation ever shared by Epic. It brings several new features, focusing on delivering everything needed for cinema, architecture, game development, and all of that in one place. And I said all that about optimization too, because Unreal 5 has a very big focus on real-time, rendering everything with immediate feedback without needing to pre-render it all. And for that, it needs to be light. It needs code that can do this intelligently. And that's a huge sign of progress. Remember Tim Sweeney saying you need a dual-core processor to do other things while compiling code? That's where the frustration comes from. Programmers not only have to run complex commands, but they also have to wait for things to compile, which is a huge pain in the neck. And for artists, lighting and graphics engines, calculating their behavior, light bounce takes forever, and it's improved a lot with better hardware and software. Tim Sweeney is actually right. At some point, you won't need to stop for long to calculate the ray tracing of the lights. And this idea is the foundation of Unreal 5. You just place the light in a corner and start programming. You don't have to worry because it's a dynamic light. And of course, this kind of light calculated constantly is very expensive for performance. But he's not just counting on today's PCs for this, for what's being implemented. This is really thinking about the future. It's being implemented, period. Unreal 5 brings the necessary structure for you to achieve this and develop further down the line. Also, the polygon count is insane, and there are countless new tools for developers to work with this more easily. Besides, of course, the metahumans. Man, let me tell you guys something here. It could, at any moment, become or create a 3D social network, where it'll be extremely easy to tell stories, taking advantage of everything it offers. Using metahumans, which are available for free, the high-quality 3D character creation tool for free. And this, with the rise of body motion capture, will lead to a lot of people generating high-quality 3D content. And of course games too, right? And so I believe that motion capture in the future, you won't need it. You'll be able to do it with a webcam, okay? I believe depth won't be necessary. Depth will be for cinema, to have really incredible details. But 2D to 3D is something that's already happening, and I think will happen even more soon, And since everyone has a phone, you just record and do the motion capture. But anyway, the future of gaming will undoubtedly have high-quality indies. And just to take a step back here, lighting is really the next step in visual quality for games. Forget the polygon count. We can solve that with optimization and other little things. But real-time lighting is realism. After all, everything we see is only possible to be seen because of light. So when we can mirror that in games, because we can perceive artificiality very easily. And this also goes beyond facial expression. It also goes into how we see the world. We go out on the street, we see what the world is like, we see light reflecting off places, so we know it's real. In games, we're fold-a-bed. And when that happens, my friend, when a developer can place a light in an environment without worrying much about its performance, it'll be a huge leap for game quality. The first games in Unreal 5, as of this recording, are actually adaptations from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5. So they don't bring what's newest, Regarding the graphics engine, ideally, we should wait a few more years, then we'll start to see games built from scratch in Unreal 5, bringing the very best. And also, considering the next generations of graphics cards and consoles. This video was a big curiosity piece with some personal notes on Unreal Engine, Epic Games, and all that. So thanks for staying until the end. If you're interested in this world, just click below to check out my course. And if not, if you're not into developing but are curious, stay tuned to this channel for more content. See y'all very soon. Big hug. Bye bye. I knew.